Disguised CEO waits in line for his own product. What the staff did next left him stunned. The line snaked down the sidewalk, cutting through the chilly morning air like a silent testament to anticipation. People huddled in coats and hoodies, clutching coffee cups and chatting in bursts of excitement. It was launch day, again, and for the third time that year, the flagship store of Livid Technologies was making headlines. Their newest wearable, the Livid Sync 5, promised more than cutting-edge tech. It promised connection, precision, power. And somewhere in the middle of that line stood a man with a graying beard, a plain navy windbreaker, worn jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked like just another early adopter. But this man wasn't here for a device. He was here for the truth. Miles Darrow, CEO and co-founder of Livid Technologies, had built an empire from nothing, from a garage in Portland to a 17-story campus in Silicon Valley. He was hailed as a visionary, a disruptor, even a savior of modern wearable tech. But lately, something had been gnawing at him, a tightening in his chest every time he reviewed internal reports. Customer satisfaction remained high, but only on paper. The emails he received from a few anonymous employees painted a different picture. Disrespect, disregard, corners cut in the flagship stores, staff overworked, customers misled, managers skating on thin accountability. He had always vowed never to become that kind of CEO. So Miles made a choice. No press team, no security detail, no warning. He shaved his signature stubble, swapped his suits for secondhand sneakers, and walked into his own company as a customer. He had waited 2 hours before he even stepped through the doors of the San Francisco location. A young employee, thin, tired eyes, and an expression worn from repetition. Barely glanced at him. "Name for your reservation?" she asked, voice flat. "Michael," he said, his late brother's name. She tapped the tablet and motioned. "Your Group C. They'll call you in about 30 minutes. Miles nodded and moved to the side. He scanned the room. It was immaculate at first glance. Bright white walls, glowing tables, minimalistic branding. But then he noticed the details. The chipped paint near the checkout terminals. The worn carpet under the couches. The slight flicker in the lights over the customer service zone. No manager would see these as red flags. But a founder? He knew what they meant. More telling than the space was the energy. The staff moved like machines. Precise, rushed, avoidant. No one made eye contact. No one smiled unless prompted. When a mother inquired about the product's parental settings, an associate answered curtly and walked away before she could finish. Miles watched, listened, waited. Then came the moment that flipped everything. A man in a wheelchair rolled up to the Genius bar-style help desk. His voice was warm, his demeanor gentle. "I have a slight issue with the sync delay. I just need to know if it's a firmware update or if I'm doing something wrong." The staffer barely glanced up. "We don't do diagnostics here. You'll have to call tech support." The man blinked. "But I bought this here. Last week. No exceptions. Next." Miles felt his stomach twist. That man had built the loyalty Livid rode on. He was a customer they promised to serve. And this was how he was treated? Later, in the restroom, Miles overheard two employees. "I told Jenna this job wasn't about people anymore. It's about clearing the queue. Fastest rep wins a bonus." "That's it." "Yeah," the other replied. "Sucks, but whatever. I'm not staying past December. Bonus for speed, not service, not integrity, not care, his company." By the time his name was called, Miles had heard enough, but he wasn't done. He went through the full purchase process, noting every step, the upselling tricks, the hollow enthusiasm, the return policy loopholes that discourage refunds. Then he thanked the staff and walked out, but he didn't go home. He returned the next day, then the day after, different disguise each time. Sometimes as a clueless customer, sometimes as an angry one. Once, he pretended to be hard of hearing. What he found chilled him. Not just neglect, but cruelty. He watched a staffer mock a customer's stutter behind her back. Another lied about warranty terms just to close a sale. A manager ignored a theft in the lobby because that's security's problem. The deeper he dug, the darker it got, and then came the twist. On his fourth visit, he caught something strange. A backroom door accidentally left ajar. He glimpsed a tablet screen displaying employee names, and next to them, detailed notes. Not schedules, not performance, but personal insults, nicknames. Dopey Dave, slow, smells like ramen. Cynthia, emotional liability. Crybaby, avoid. Thomas, union whisperer. Record convos, fire soon. He stared in disbelief. This wasn't poor management. This was a culture of cruelty, created, endorsed, tracked by someone inside. That night, he accessed the internal servers using a backdoor protocol only 3 people in the company knew about. What he found made his hands tremble. A secret incentive program. Managers were rewarded with bonuses not just for speed, but for minimizing complaints, not resolving them, erasing them, marking tickets closed regardless of outcome. And worse, employees who spoke out were quietly let go under vague performance claims. And it got more personal. Miles found an internal message thread, buried in the code of a staff feedback platform. Someone had written, "Old man's checked out. He won't notice. If he does, he'll be too late." It was dated 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks before he got in line. The next morning, Miles called a private investigator. He also called his lawyer. Then he called the one person he trusted more than anyone, Jasmine, his former COO. "I need your help," he said. "It's worse than we imagined." "What do they do?" she asked. "Everything," he said. "But I'm going to burn it down and rebuild it myself." And as he looked at the device he had purchased, the one meant to connect the world, he whispered, "First, I need to expose the ones who disconnected us." What Miles didn't know yet was that someone inside already suspected him, and they were watching. He noticed it the next morning, though just barely. A man across the street from his condo, pretending to read a newspaper. Later, at a downtown cafe, a woman taking a selfie lingered a second too long, phone angled unnaturally toward his table. The final proof came when Miles received a phone call from a number he didn't recognize. When he answered, no one spoke, but in the background, he heard the beeping tones of a security scanner, like the one used at the store's restricted areas. Someone was sending a message. That night, Jasmine met him at a private co-working space downtown. She had already pulled copies of the board's most recent meeting minutes. There, buried in legalese, was a clause he hadn't authorized. Temporary transfer of operational oversight to a regional director named Daniel Kerr. Miles had never heard of him. Jasmine had. He used to be a mid-level logistics guy. Ambitious, calculating, and very good at climbing. He must have consolidated power while you were focused on R&D. This guy's CEO waits in line for his own product. What the staff did next left him stunned. The line snaked down the sidewalk, cutting through the chilly morning air like a silent testament to anticipation. People huddled in coats and hoodies, clutching coffee cups and chatting in bursts of excitement. It was launch day, again, and for the third time that year, the flagship store of Livid Technologies was making headlines. Their newest wearable, the Livid Sync 5, promised more than cutting-edge tech. It promised connection, precision, power. And somewhere in the middle of that line stood a man with a graying beard, a plain navy windbreaker, worn jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked like just another early adopter. But this man wasn't here for a device. He was here for the truth. Miles Darrow, CEO and co-founder of Livid Technologies, had built an empire from nothing, from a garage in Portland to a 17-story campus in Silicon Valley. He was hailed as a visionary, a disruptor, even a savior of modern wearable tech. But lately, something had been gnawing at him, a tightening in his chest every time he reviewed internal reports. Customer satisfaction remained high, but only on paper. The emails he received from a few anonymous employees painted a different picture. Disrespect, disregard, corners cut in the flagship stores, staff overworked, customers misled, managers skating on thin accountability. He had always vowed never to become that kind of CEO. So Miles made a choice. No press team, no security detail, no warning. He shaved his signature stubble, swapped his suits for second-hand sneakers, and walked into his own company as a customer. He had waited 2 hours before he even stepped through the doors of the San Francisco location. A young employee, thin, tired eyes, an expression worn from repetition, barely glanced at him. "Name for your reservation?" she asked, voice flat. "Michael," he said, his late brother's name. She tapped the tablet and motioned. "Your Group C. They'll call you in about 30 minutes. Miles nodded and moved to the side. He scanned the room. It was immaculate at first glance. Bright white walls, glowing tables, minimalistic branding. But then he noticed the details. The chipped paint near the checkout terminals. The worn carpet under the couches. The slight flicker in the lights over the customer service zone. No manager would see these as red flags. But a founder? He knew what they meant. More telling than the space was the energy. The staff moved like machines, precise, rushed, avoidant. No one made eye contact. No one smiled unless prompted. When a mother inquired about the product's parental settings, an associate answered curtly and walked away before she could finish. Miles watched, listened, waited. Then came the moment that flipped everything. A man in a wheelchair rolled up to the Genius Bar-style help desk. His voice was warm, his demeanor gentle. "I have a slight issue with the sync delay. I just need to know if it's a firmware update or if I'm doing something wrong." The staffer barely glanced up. "We don't do diagnostics here. You'll have to call tech support." The man blinked. "But I bought this here. Last week. No exceptions. Next." Miles felt his stomach twist. That man had built the loyalty Livid rode on. He was a customer they promised to serve. And this was how he was treated? Later, in the restroom, Miles overheard 2 employees. "I told Jenna this job wasn't about people anymore. It's about clearing the queue. Fastest rep wins a bonus." "That's it." "Yeah," the other replied. "Sucks, but whatever. I'm not staying past December." Bonus for speed, not service, not integrity, not care, his company. By the time his name was called, Miles had heard enough. But he wasn't done. He went through the full purchase process, noting every step, the upselling tricks, the hollow enthusiasm, the return policy loopholes that discourage refunds. Then he thanked the staff and walked out. But he didn't go home. He returned the next day, then the day after, different disguise each time. Sometimes as a clueless customer, sometimes as an angry one. Once, he pretended to be hard of hearing. What he found chilled him. Not just neglect, but cruelty. He watched a staffer mock a customer's stutter behind her back. Another lied about warranty terms just to close a sale. A manager ignored a theft in the lobby because that's security's problem. The deeper he dug, the darker it got. And then came the twist. On his 4th visit, he caught something strange. A backroom door accidentally left ajar. He glimpsed a tablet screen displaying employee names, and next to them, detailed notes. Not schedules, not performance, but personal insults, nicknames. Dopey Dave, slow, smells like ramen. Cynthia, emotional liability. Crybaby, avoid. Thomas, union whisperer. Record convos, fire soon. He stared in disbelief. This wasn't poor management. This was a culture of cruelty, created, endorsed, tracked by someone inside. That night, he accessed the internal servers using a backdoor protocol only 3 people in the company knew about. What he found made his hands tremble. A secret incentive program. Managers were rewarded with bonuses not just for speed, but for minimizing complaints, not resolving them, erasing them, marking tickets closed regardless of outcome. And worse, employees who spoke out were quietly let go under vague performance claims. And it got more personal. Miles found an internal message thread, buried in the code of a staff feedback platform. Someone had written, "Old man's checked out. He won't notice. If he does, he'll be too late." It was dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks before he got in line. The next morning, Miles called a private investigator. He also called his lawyer. Then he called the one person he trusted more than anyone, Jasmine, his former COO. "I need your help," he said. "It's worse than we imagined." "What did they do?" she asked. "Everything," he said. "But I'm going to burn it down and rebuild it myself." And as he looked at the device he had purchased, the one meant to connect the world, he whispered, "First, I need to expose the ones who disconnected us." What Miles didn't know yet was that someone inside already suspected him, and they were watching, she said, "and he's got friends on the board." Miles felt the weight of betrayal like a stone in his chest, but he wasn't angry. Not yet. He was focused. He pulled out the livid Sync 5 he had bought under his alias and held it between them. Let's find out who Daniel's loyal to, the company or himself. Over the next 2 weeks, Miles and Jasmine operated like detectives. They interviewed terminated employees off the record. They recovered surveillance footage, internal emails, even personal messages from managers praising Daniel for keeping HQ in the dark. What they discovered was worse than corruption. It was culture rot. Daniel had created a loyalty network inside the company, hiring only from personal referrals, blacklisting whistleblowers, rewarding silence. In one video, he was caught saying, "If you treat people like numbers, they become numbers. Replaceable." It made Miles sick. Livid wasn't just a brand. It was his life's work, a promise he had made to his brother, to the early employees, to himself. He wouldn't let it die this way. Jasmine arranged a shareholder meeting. It wasn't easy. Daniel's web extended far. But Miles still held 34% of the company, and his name still meant something. On the day of a meeting, he walked in, no disguise, no stubble, no hat, just the face of the man who built it all. The boardroom fell silent. Daniel was there, flanked by 2 legal advisors. His smile was smug. That didn't last. Miles laid out everything: documents, recordings, testimonies. One by one, he exposed every lie, every manipulation, every harm. Jasmine played the clip of Daniel mocking a disabled customer, then another of him pressuring staff to forge performance data. The room cracked. The board turned. Legal advised suspension. Miles motioned for termination. It was unanimous. But as security escorted Daniel out, he turned and said quietly, "This won't fix what's broken." Miles stared at him. "No," he said, "but it's the first step." In the days that followed, Livid Technologies issued a public apology. Miles personally reinstated wrongfully fired employees. He ordered a top-down review of all retail locations, and he stood in the lobby of the San Francisco store to greet customers, face to face. The line was shorter that day, but the trust he started rebuilding, that would stretch far longer. He thought it was over, until he opened an unmarked envelope at his office 1 week later. Inside was a single message: Daniel wasn't working alone. And just like that, it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something even deeper. Want to know what happens next? Subscribe to Beyond True Crime and turn on notifications so you don't miss part 3. You won't believe who was behind it all.